Kia ora and welcome to the Niggly Niche Cast. I'm the Diggly Doodah, Dr. Peptoid Panther, Mr. Slippers, here to talk through a bunch of rugby league matters. I'm here all by myself. Last week we recorded 2 rugby league episodes of the Niche Cast with the Wobbly Wildcard just to talk through a bunch of mainly Warriors related stuff, but also Wildcard, He Loves the Dragons, so it was just a more general rugby league discussion, and then shit kind of hit the fan earlier in this week, so I couldn't do a podcast then, but I'm back here to offer a few preview thoughts for round 22. Obviously, there's going to be a heavy-duty Warriors focus. That's always what we do here. NRL, they have a game against the Roosters, I think, on Sunday. We got Jersey Flag, we got Reserve Grade, and then I'll cast my gaze across the wider Kiwi NRL as well, because there's a couple of little nuggets that I explored in the Kiwi NRL encyclopedia. So if you do enjoy NRL footy from the Kiwi NRL perspective, do check out my blog post that I do previewing every round and which players with connections and links to Aotearoa are in the NRL for this week. Support the Nichecation, the Nichecast as best you can. Patreon's the number one way to support us. We've done our episode 2 of our Patreon only podcast, and that and episode 3 are going to be open for everyone to try and get people to support us on Patreon. After that, it's just going to be up for our patrons only. So if you are listening to this and you are a patron, fire through any questions, queries, comments, opinions, and I'll be sure to touch base with those either on Patreon or I'll recognize you on the Facebook comments or whatever it is. Otherwise, do support us on Patreon. That is the best way to support us directly. Otherwise, rates, reviews, likes, comments, subscriptions are all welcome as well. We appreciate you listening. That's the number one way to support us, is just listening. And then if you do feel generous and you're liking what we're doing, do jump onto Patreon as well. Righty-ho. The Warriors, they had a good win last week against the Manly Sea Eagles, and they may be viewed as kind of riding into finals footy. Here come the Warriors. They're in 11th, and they're sitting on 19 points. Brisbane Broncos are currently the team in 8th, and they are only 2 points ahead of the Warriors. So you've got the Broncos on 21 points, Sharks on 20, West Tigers on 20, Warriors on 19, and then the Newcastle Knights are in a bit of a spot of bother, but they're not too far behind. They are on 18 points, and the Panthers are on 22. So basically from the Knights in 18th, on 18 points in 12th, up to the Panthers who are on 22 points. That's like a big old group hunting for the last 2 top 8 spots, I think. Panthers and Broncos sit in the top 8 currently, but don't be surprised to see things shuffling around, especially if the Warriors can get some wins to their name. Not convinced it's going to happen this week, though, against the Sydney Roosters. The Warriors were definitely up for that game against Manly Sea Eagles, as we have seen pretty much like the last 2 seasons. So last season, the Warriors were very good at getting up for games, and then they would fall away the next week. And that wasn't overly surprising in the moment, because I always thought it was very difficult for the Warriors to sustain and maintain such a high intensity, which they showed in those impressive wins last season for like 5, 6, 7 weeks. It's very hard to do that week after week after week after week in the NRL, and the Warriors have never really shown any ability to do so. So flow into this year, and the inconsistencies are still there, which is not desirable, but it's okay. And mainly inconsistent. They've been kind of consistently mediocre, for sure, as I've talked about at length in these podcasts. But, I don't know if this Warriors team is going to get back-to-back wins in this stage of the season, where they have some very difficult games against very good opposition. Like, for the Warriors I still think the Warriors can get into the top 8, but it's just not going to come via back-to-back wins. Like, they're not going to beat the Seagulls, then beat the Roosters, then beat the Sharks, or beat the Sharks and then beat the Rabbitohs. I think they might get, they might lose this game, then they might beat the Sharks, and then they might get a win from their last 2 games, and that might be enough. I don't know, but this Warriors team just doesn't feel like a group that is going to get back-to-back wins against pretty much all these teams are in the top 8 except for the Sharks, and even then the Sharks feel like a better team than the Warriors. I'm just not overly confident that the Warriors can get back-to-back wins at this stage of the season. Also throw in the fact that the Warriors tend not to perform when it matters most. Like, they've been in this position many years in a row. They're always outside the top 8, trying to get into the top 8 or on the fringes of the top 8, and then they slip out because they can't get wins when it matters most the majority of the time. In terms of team selection, you got Adam Pompey starting on a wing this week, Peta Hiku and Gerard Beale in the centres, which just feels better than having Blake Ayshford in the centres. And then you've got Jazz Tavanga starting at hooker. Again, the forward packs as per it has been recently, and then Adam Kieran, Samlasoni, Bantiafoa, Lingi Sao on the bench. And we're still waiting to see what happens with Cody Nikorima. There was something on the Warriors website, I'll just pull that up as well, about Cody Nikorima possibly coming onto the bench. The headline is Nikorima set for the bench if fit, and there's a bit of a situation here because Chanel Harris-Tavita has come in guns blazing. Like, Chanel Harris-Tavita just looks like a baller. He's got good skills, he's got a slick left foot kicking game, and he's got the type of left foot kicking game that most Kiwi players or players from Aotearoa who are who have grown up in Aotearoa and haven't spent too much time in the Australian systems, those dudes kick the ball differently. I just have very vivid memories of how Jonathan Thurston used to kick the ball. He'd just kind of lob it into space. He'll just kind of drop it on the boot, kick it through the defensive line. He wouldn't necessarily kick it high or long. He would just find the space, and it was a very league-centric kicking game. It applied strictly to rugby league. You're not going to do kicks like that in rugby union, and it just feels like Chanel Harris-Tavita's kicking game. It looks very natural. He's got touch with the kicks, so he can land it on a dime. He can boot the shit out of the ball and go long as well. And he's got good passing. He's got a good running game. And the thing that's impressed everyone is his defense and how he muscles up. So Chanel Harris-Tavita, other than perhaps Ken Mamalo, who I still think one of the best wingers in the world and one of the best development players at the Warriors, considering how much he has improved over 24 months. Other than Ken Mamalo, I think Chanel Harris-Tavita is the most exciting player at the Warriors at the moment in terms of the NRL group. Chanel Harris-Tavita has looked at ease in the NRL. Everything looks a bit easy for him in the NRL. He's got time and he's showing the attitude and intensity that you want players to come into the NRL with, and something that doesn't tend to happen at the Warriors. So I think Chanel Harris-Tavita is in a fantastic space at the moment, and based upon how the Warriors were performing with Cody Nikorima in the halves, you could make a case that Chanel Harris-Tavita should be the half ahead of Cody Nikorima, which is an interesting thought process when you consider that the Warriors are also looking for a dummy half. For whatever reason, I've talked about it at length once again about how the Warriors are disposing of Isaac Luke. I like Isaac Luke. I like everything Isaac Luke offers as a player at dummy half and what he can do at dummy half, but for whatever reason the Warriors are going to part ways with him, and that's fine. I understand perhaps why they might do it. I just probably wouldn't do it, especially given the dummy half situation at the club. But Cody Nikorima, for mine, his best footy has come at dummy half. Like Cody Nikorima, when the Brisbane Broncos went to the grand final, Cody Nikorima was coming off the bench, playing dummy half, getting out of dummy half, fast, skillful, dynamic. Kiwis, Cody Nikorima, during that same time period, was exceptional when the Kiwis were beating Australia, coming off the bench at dummy half. He's so fast. He's got all the skills at dummy half. And I just wonder, like, if this Chanel Harris-Tavita situation continues as I suspect it will, that means that Chanel Harris-Tavita continues to play well, continues to perform strongly, where are you going to fit Kodi Nikorima in? And there just also happens to be a bit of a gap at dummy half, considering Nathaniel Roach is kind of a walking injury at this point, and Carl Lawton is out of action with an injury at the moment. Who knows what he's going to do in the future? So that leaves Kodi Nikorima sniffing around a spot in the top 17, and I just think his skill set is nicely suited to dummy half. He's not an amazing defender, but in the middle of the field it's a bit easier to defend than out on the edges, because you're going to get isolated out on the edges, whereas you can do a job as a middle defender, as a small hooker, with your middle forwards around you. Like, you just got to make contact, and then other guys are going to come in, wrap up the ball player, wrestle him to the ground, and so on and so forth. So I'm just highlighting this. I'm not saying that Kodi Nikorima needs to be dummy half. I'm just saying that with Chanel Harris-Tavita in the halves and playing well, it's going to create a bit of a conundrum for the Warriors and Stephen Kearney. Another issue that I have talked about this week is the edge forwards, with Isaiah Papali'i and Adam Blair not doing a amazing job. They were good, like the Warriors were good as a team against the Manly Seagulls, so keep that in mind. But I think this is an area of the Warriors play that is lacking at the moment in terms of Adam Blair and Isaiah Papali'i. They're not overly fast, they're not overly big, they're not fantastic ball runners. They don't have the skill to make up for those physical attributes that they don't have. So they don't have Wade Graham level skills, if you know what I'm saying here. They are very solid rugby league players, but they don't offer anything unique in those edge forward positions, and I believe that this is an area that the Warriors have been lacking in terms of ball playing, in terms of making a defense and making a dent and running good lines off the half, and just offering impact out on the edges. I am definitely not an Adam Blair hater. I appreciate Adam Blair. I appreciate what he's done for the Warriors. I'm not one of these people who's going to hate on Adam Blair's statistics, because that's not what Adam Blair has ever done. Adam Blair has never delivered fantastic statistics, and he's always handled the shit that other people don't want to do. He's a leader by actions, and yes, I understand that Adam Blair is not in amazing form. I understand that Adam Blair also averages 1.1 penalties conceded per game, so it's a bit of a... I mean, if you're averaging a penalty conceded a game, that's not good. But Adam Blair's just doing a job. He's just doing a job at edge forward because there's no Tohu Harris. So it's not as though Adam Blair is... he's come to the Warriors and he's demanded to play edge forward. No, it's the opposite. Adam Blair has come to the Warriors and he is doing what the Warriors require him to do in the absence of Tohu Harris. And I've got the statistics here in front of me. I wrote about this, so go read about it if you want the full statistical wrap. But Tohu Harris averages more runs and run meters, and Tohu Harris averages more meters per run than Isaiah Papali'i or Adam Blair. So Tohu Harris is a better runner. He is the only one of those dudes to average at least one tackle bust per game, and so he's just a better option. And we've seen Tohu Harris this season and last season offer plenty of skill. He's got great footwork, he's got size, he's a solid defender. He is the type of edge forward we want, but he's been injured, so Adam Blair has had to do that job. The area of concern for me is far greater, and that is Isaiah Papali'i. I believe Isaiah Papali'i has hit a plateau, and at least Blair has the hands, and he's got the experience. We've seen Adam Blair score a few tries this year just running good lines. He doesn't do it overly often, but when he does do it, and the Warriors do set plays for him, he has scored tries doing that and made a bit of an impact doing that. Isaiah Papali'i doesn't really offer any of that. Physically, Isaiah Papali'i is a specimen, but he's not a unique specimen because he doesn't have size. He's not overly nimble, agile footwork. He doesn't have Tohu Harris footwork. He doesn't have Tohu Harris size. He's not overly skillful either. And Isaiah Papali'i just feels like he's a bit stagnant at the moment. And the flip side of this is that Isaiah Papali'i and Adam Blair, they are, Stephen Kearney type of players. They're going to work hard. They've got the right attitudes apparently, and they grind. They grit their teeth. They do the hard yakka, which is cool. And for a young player like Isaiah Papali'i to do that is fantastic. But if we're talking what's going to make the Warriors a better team, either you need more dynamic, skillful edge forwards, or Isaiah Papali'i has to just go offer way more aggression, way more oomph and impact running the footy and hit people out on the edges and be a defensive mastermind and those sorts of things, which he isn't currently doing. So the way I want to assess this situation is I think Adam Blair's done a good job stepping in for Tohu Harris, and Isaiah Papali'i has hit a bit of a plateau, and that means that the Warriors' edge forwards as a overall has been very lackluster this season, and it's a key point of attack, I reckon. It's very underrated. It's slept on how effective edge forwards can be. I've thought about this a few times, and how if I was, wingers and centres, they want to be centres because apparently centres get more money on the market, so you want to be a centre because, that's the sexy position. Whereas I think that has changed dramatically, and now, given what wingers are doing, I think it's a better career move for someone who has the option to play on the wing. If you're Dane Gagai, for example, I'd rather be Dane Gagai as the winger than Dane Gagai the centre, because Dane Gagai and the wingers these days, they're getting all the highlights, so you're recognisable. You're going to be far more notorious as a winger than you are a centre, because centres don't really do a whole lot. They do things, which I'll touch on in a second, but in terms of scoring the amazing tries and being on camera, that's the wingers. And the wingers also do a hell of a lot of work running the footy. So we've seen it with Ken Mamalo and any other NRL winger, you need to be taking, if you're a winger, you need to average at least 15 runs a game. I think that's the mark. You might do 10, 12, 13, that's okay, that's solid. But if you're a winger of note, you're going to be taking 15 runs a game, you're going to have tackle busts, you're going to be doing the hard yakka as well. So you're getting recognition as a ball runner and helping your team get down the other end. And you're also getting on the highlights as a try scorer. So if I had the choice, I'd much rather be a winger. That's where you want to be. Centre is kind of just, I think you don't want to spend money on a centre. You want to get value for money at centre. You want someone who's going to do their job, has good hands to set up their winger, makes solid defensive reads, and just plays everything at a solid, reliable level. I don't think you're going to see too many star centres anymore, because as we've seen with Jesse Ramian, star centres want the ball and they're not always going to get the ball. So you just want a solid job doing centre, and then you want more impact, X factor and contributions from your winger. And if you're a player, you'd probably want to be on the wing, because that's where you're going to get the eyeballs, the highlights, and you're probably going to get more footy, considering you do a whole lot more work running the footy out of your own territory as well. And I say all that, that's a tangent I went down, because I thought of that after I thought about the role of the edge forward. And I think the edge forward is underutilized and undervalued, and I believe that a really good edge forward is going to have a huge impact on a team, because you look at Viliami Kikau, he's a point of attack on the edge, Wade Graham, he's a point of attack on the edge. And if you got Wade Graham and Sean Johnson, that's a very tricky combination to stop. Let me just look around the NRL, some of these fantastic teams. Angus Crichton for the Roosters has been fantastic recently, and he's a point of attack on the edges because of his running game. Like, he's always going to make meters. He's always going to get a quick play the ball down playing on the edge. And if it's not Angus Crichton, it's going to be Boyd Cordner. Melbourne Storm, Felice Kaufusi, Kenny Bromwich. Every week they show up and they do the same thing. You know exactly what you're going to get from those two players. They might not be the focal point of the attack on the edges, but they don't need to be because it's the Melbourne Storm, who are a fantastic rugby league team. And then you look at the team they're playing this week. John Bateman, Elliot Whitehead for the Canberra Raiders. Both extremely skillful. Break tackles. Do and contribute in multiple ways. They contribute to the game in multiple ways. What else do we have here? Just scrolling through. Tavita Pangai Jr. playing on an edge. David Fifita playing on an edge. Dynamic ball runners. Difficult to tackle. Have skill, offload, and are going to get you quick play the balls on an edge, which is crucial. So I think having edge forwards, Manly Seagulls have also seen, they're playing tonight against the West Tigers, so keep that in mind. But I think Curtis Sirenen has been fantastic for the Canberra Manly Seagulls this season, and he's added a different, wrinkle to what the Seagulls are doing because he's a big, skillful unit out on an edge. So I just believe that edge forward position is so important to a rugby league team, and when you have Isaiah Papali'i and Adam Blair as your starting edge forwards, there's just not a whole lot doing there. Like, you're not looking to those players to create something or make something happen. They are job doers, which is fine. They are doing their job, but they're a different type of player who, like, even compared to Kenny Bromwich and Felice Kaufusi, Adam Blair and Isaiah Papali'i aren't as powerful, as dynamic, or as subtle in what they do in terms of running lines and stuff like that as the Melbourne Storm duo. So it just feels like they're ho-hum. Like, they're just, okay, these two dudes, solid rugby league players, but they're not really adding anything on the field. And that's just a point of weakness for the Warriors at the moment. Again, I believe Isaiah Papali'i has hit a bit of a plateau, and he's got to develop things in his game. Adam Blair's just doing a job. So it's not hating on Adam Blair. He's just doing his job for the team because Tohu Harris is out injured. In terms of the depth the Warriors have at edge forward, well, this week, I just accidentally closed this tab, so let me pull it up quickly. Here we go. This week, Adam Tuamavave-Gerard, he's a dynamic, robust edge forward. Levaha Pulu is also playing on an edge. And then you have King Vuniyayawa starting in the middle, and Josh Curran is starting in the middle. So all four of those dudes can do a job on the edge. King Vuniyayawa has typically played edge forward for the Warriors reserve grade team, and Josh Curran is a mobile back rower who can play edge, who can play middle, and then you got Tuamavave-Gerard and Levaha Pulu on the edges starting this week. Deeper in the depth chart, we go down to Jersey Flegg. Brodie Tamarua has shown that he's got extreme skills. He's playing in the halves. He's an edge forward. He kicks the footy. Brodie Tamarua is more of a more Wade Graham type of edge forward, and it's good to have someone like that in the system. Tom Alley is a dynamic, brutal ball runner, and whether he can develop the subtleties in his game, lines, timing, and all that stuff is going to be interesting. But he's an exciting prospect. Tony Tupouniua is the brother of Sitili Tupouniua, and very similar size, stature, and skill set. He looks like an exciting prospect as well. And then I'm just curious as to whether Ilesa Katoa and Neila Masima, the guys who came across from rugby union, so Katoa was at Tamaki College First 15 Rugby Union, Masima was with St. Pat's Silverstream. Don't quite know where they're going to slide into the NRL in terms of like what position they're going to play, but they could play edge forward, and I'm just saying that the Warriors have plenty of edge forward depth coming through. So don't stress. Chill out. In terms of this week against the Roosters, tough game. shit the bed. Tough game. Obviously, it starts with the forward pack. They're going to have to aim up and do a job against this Roosters forward pack. No Siasoa Tokiaho this week. He is out, as he has been in recent weeks. But you're still going to have, like, Pawasa Fa'amasili and Satili Tupanui are fantastic off the bench. Zane Teravano last week, his defence was brutal. The Sydney Roosters forward pack is amazing. So what the Warriors are going to do against that forward pack is going to be very interesting. And then, of course, you got James Tedesco, Luke Keary, Cooper Cronk, Latrell Mitchell, Joseph Manu. Like, it just doesn't seem like the Warriors are going to win that game. If they are going to win that game, it's going to take some rugged defense, a whole lot of attitude, effort, desire defensively to shut down the Roosters. And then it's the same old story. You've got to offer the unpredictable. You've got to be able to break down the opposition defenses, and you do that with offloads, passing, shifting the footy around, footwork through the middle, and just manipulating the spacing of the Roosters' defensive line, because otherwise, if you don't even bother to try and manipulate the spacing and the numbers of the Roosters' defensive line, if you're not even getting to that point, you're not going to score points against the Roosters. As simple as that. So I'm not overly optimistic. I'm hopeful that the Warriors can defeat the Sydney Roosters, but it's going to take the Roosters being slightly off their game and the Roosters playing at an exceptionally high level. Reserve grade and Jersey Flegg this week are against the Sydney Roosters and the North Sydney Bears. And I just want to say, because we had a very interesting week for the Turner whānau. So Paul Turner got a little highlights package done. He scored 2 tries, I think, for the Canterbury Cup team last week in their loss, I believe, to the Rabbitohs. Paul Turner, he had a highlights package of just scintillating running footy. And that was good enough to earn Paul Turner, fullback for the Warriors reserve grade team, still eligible to play Jersey Flegg. He was named at fullback for the Canterbury Cup Team of the Week. This is interesting because Lee Turner, Paul Turner's brother, has played, I think he's played 5 games for Tweed Heads Seagulls in the Intra Super Cup, and he is playing at centre. This week, Lee Turner scored 2 tries, and he won selection in the Intra Super Cup Team of the Week at centre. So you had Paul Turner and his brother Lee Turner both named in the respective Teams of the Week for the 2 reserve grade competitions. Pretty amazing for the Turner whānau. They are from up north, and I believe Paul Turner partnered Dylan Brown in the Northern Swords under 15 team back in 2016, I think it was. So you had Paul Turner and Dylan Brown, who's playing with the Parramatta Eels, in the halves for the same Northern Swords tournament. Paul Turner looks like a gun, and I think they both spent time with the Rabbitohs junior system at Mascot, and then both returned to play for the Warriors under-20s, and then Lee Turner kind of drifted off the scene. He might be a year or 2 older than Paul Turner, so it's fantastic to see Lee Turner now getting an opportunity in reserve grade in Queensland for the Tweed Heads Seagulls. And that's interesting because Tweed Heads are a feeder club for the Gold Coast Titans, and the Gold Coast Titans are currently shit. So that could mean opportunities, and just if Lee Turner continues to play really well for Tweed Heads, I think the Gold Coast Titans are going to look to invest in local talent. Lee Turner isn't local talent, quote unquote, but he's there playing for their feeder club, and he is showing signs that he's a good young player. And if Gold Coast Titans want players and value for money, they'll promote from within. And I'm just interested in whether Lee Turner can play his way into some sort of opportunity with the Gold Coast Titans, because he's currently playing for their feeder club, one of their feeder clubs. Deep breath. Right, so reserve grade this week we have Blake Ashford, named to start in the halves. That's pretty cool. Nothing else funky here in the reserve grade team. Same faces, same positions that we tend to see. Still got the Tyler Slade, Sean Mullaney dummy half rotation there in reserve grade. Good to see Philip Makatoa still getting a run in reserve grade. He is still flag eligible, as I keep saying. Hayes Perhams in the halves. Patrick Herbert at centre. So that's pretty cool for the reserve grade team. Jersey flag. You've got KL Iro still playing centre. I don't know why I said his name. He's always played centre. Caleb Pesse is starting at centre this week as well. There's a bit of a rotating cast at centre for the Warriors Jersey flag team. Patrick Aaliyah hasn't been cited in a while. And then you also had Ray... Oh, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but Ray... something or other. Sorry, disrespect. Excuse me. But he was named to start at centre last week, but then I think he was a late scratching, and Caleb Pesse eventually did play in the centres for Jersey flag last week. So Caleb Pesse is starting at centre this week. In the halves, you've got Casey Smith, who was playing centre for the last few weeks. He is now back in the halves along with Sione Moala. And then the forward pack is the same Jersey flag forward pack we've seen throughout the season. Taniela Kalepo, otherwise known as Temple Kalepo, I believe. He is starting at hooker. He played a couple reserve grade games and looked absolutely dynamite. So it'll be interesting to see what he can dish up in Jersey flag. Isaiah Vangana starting at lock. And then, the bench. Tupanuia, Katoa, Jairus Glamozina, who is one of the most highly celebrated prospects coming through Aotearoa. Michael Lemafa, Nela Masima is 18th man. So, not a whole lot of changes, rotation there in reserve grade and Jersey flag. Of course, since the last time I think I've done this type of rugby league episode of the Nishcast, the Warriors have released Chris Sate, so I think he's gone to England, and Blake Ayshford has all but announced his retirement. So that's going to free up some contract spots, and I did write about this a few weeks ago, last week actually, about strategies for the Warriors, because there was an article on Stuff about how the Warriors don't have any options. They are built. They don't have any players coming off contract. They can't sign anyone, blah, 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 which was a complete bullshit. The Warriors, as we talked about last week with the wildcard, NRL contracts mean nothing, but more importantly, you're going to see the Warriors promote from within. So you're going to see those guys like Paul Turner come through. You're going to see Hayes Perham get more opportunities. You're going to see Jackson Frey, Josh Curran, those type of dudes get more opportunities. Perhaps Adam Tuamavave Gerard. And then you're going to have Preston Rickey, Clayton Williams, Philip Makatoa, and a lot of these flag dudes are going to move up to reserve grade next year. And you're just going to have this flow of talent that has been put in place by the new regime, the development pathways. These are all going to come to fruition next year and beyond. So the Warriors don't need to go out and pursue big dramatic signings. They just promote from within, which is cheaper and more beneficial. Rightio, we'll flow into the Kiwi NRL wrap and Seagulls versus Tigers tonight. I do want to talk about this just for a second, because the Seagulls have Tavita Funa on their extended bench, and Tavita Funa was part of the 2016 Toda Here program, which was about New Zealand Rugby League going to Australia and holding camps and games for Aotearoa eligible players based in Australia, which I think has actually been stopped. Not sure why, don't really care why it's been stopped, but whatever. And Tavita Funa was part of that Toda Here program. I don't know what his connection to Aotearoa is. He might have just been born in Aotearoa, then moved to Australia. But he was in the same team as Manasi Fainu, and both Lee Turner and Paul Turner were also in the 2016 Toda Here merit team. I think Lee Turner was at centre and Paul Turner was off the bench. Tavita Funa was at centre or wing, and Manasi Fainu was actually in the halves. I say that because, I don't know what the link to Aotearoa is for Tavita Funa, so it doesn't appear to have any like serious link to Aotearoa. And I believe Tevita Funa will end up playing for Tonga if he does crack into the NRL. Like, he's good mates with Manasi Whainu, so he'll just go down that route. So I'm not going to like go in depth covering Tevita Funa when I don't really know the connection to Aotearoa. And the same goes for Tommy Talau, who was the son of Willie Talau. Willie Talau played for the Kiwis. He's a Samoan Kiwi. He is from Taranaki, I believe. And Tommy Talau has no connection to Aotearoa other than his father, I think. Like, he spent time in England as a kid, but other than that, he was born and raised in Australia. So he's starting at centre for the West Tigers, but doesn't really have any serious connection to Aotearoa other than Willie Talau being a Kiwis representative. Isa Masters at centre as well. Benji Marshall in the halves for the Tigers. Michael Cheekham starting on an edge, and Elijah Taylor has drifted back into the Tigers top 17. And while we're on this topic, Taniela Paseka is another Tongan forward. He's the monster. He is the monster for the Manly Seagulls coming off the bench. He was born in Auckland, but I think he has already represented New South Wales at like under 20s or under 18s level. So I don't think he's going to lean into being Kiwis eligible. And I think he's definitely going to go down the Tongan route. And I'm telling you, like, Tonga might have hit a bit of a plateau themselves at this stage. But there's a lot of depth for Tonga coming through. Like, you're going to add Taniela Paseka to a Tongan forward pack. That's absolutely crazy. Absolutely crazy. Titans versus Eels. Titans have Jesse Arthurs has come back into the Titans team, and he's starting on the wing at the moment. Remember, Jesse Arthurs has signed with the Brisbane Broncos for next season. He lost his centre spot when they randomly just decided to sign Callum Watkins, but it's good to see Jesse Arthurs back in the mix with the change of coach. He is on the wing, and then you got Moeaki. You got Kevin Proctor starting on an edge, Moeaki Fotuaika off the bench. Fotuaika, another Tongan forward. Eels. Brad Takarangi's made a fantastic... he's taken his opportunity, on the wing for the Parramatta Eels fantastically well. Wanga Blake has come into the Eels team. He's starting at centre. Michael Jennings is starting at centre. And Brad Takarangi has been forced to move to the wing, but he's making a good fist of it. Dylan Brown, extremely talented. Dylan Brown will make the Kiwis squad this year. I guarantee that. He is a supreme talent, and his combination with Mitchell Moses is nice. Moses controls the game. Dylan Brown can just focus on running the footy and adding his personal X factor. Manu Ma'u is on the edge for the Parramatta Eels. Then you have Pene Terapo, another Tongan forward, and Marata Niukore on the bench. Niukore has been very, very strong for the Parramatta Eels, and the punch of having Niukore and Terapo coming through the middle for the Eels, something to watch out for. I think they'll be too good for the Titans. Broncos versus Panthers. Broncos have Jermaine Sako starting on a wing, and then Alex Glenn is on the extended bench. Panthers, you have James Fisher-Harris, the 80-minute middle forward, doing an amazing job for the Panthers in the middle. He's starting in the middle this week. Then you got Sione Katoa, Moses Leota on the bench. Dean Whare is on an extended bench. Debutant Spencer Liniu, I think he was born in Aotearoa and then moved to Australia at a young age and has represented New South Wales, schoolboys, Australia, those sorts of things. So no connection to Aotearoa there. Knights versus Cowboys. Knights, Mason Lino in the half, Sean Kenny-Dowell on the wing. Herman Ese has come back into the bench. And then you've got Jira Momosia and Danny Levi on an extended bench. I'm still hoping that we see Jira Momosia get a debut this season. Jordan Kahu makes a return on the wing for the Cowboys. Jason Tamalolo in the middle. Peter Holler made his debut not last week, I think it was the week before, and he is one of the most exciting Kiwi NRL forward prospects in the competition at the moment. Peter Holler, another Tongan forward. And if he's spending a lot of time around Jason Taumalolo, he's probably going to play for Tonga. But he has played Junior Kiwis, he has played New Zealand under-18s, he is a fantastic talent, and he's someone to keep an eye on. Trust me on that. Peter Holler for the North Queensland Cowboys. Storm versus Raiders. Jerome Hughes back at fullback this week. Jesse Bromwich, Nelson Asafa-Solomona, and Kenny Bromwich in the forward pack. Jesse Bromwich, Asafa-Solomona, and Kenny Bromwich have played every single game for the Melbourne Storm this week, and the Melbourne Storm just happen to be the best team in the NRL, so it's an amazing achievement for those forwards. Shans Nickel-Klokstad at fullback for the Raiders. Jordan Rapana on the wing. Iosia Soliola at middle forward, as well as Joseph Tapine. I'm excited to see Joseph Tapine just stacking up games. He's kind of injury prone and has been in and out of the Canberra Raiders team for pretty much 2 seasons now, and I'm happy just to see him doing a job in the middle for the Raiders at the moment. Big, mobile, dynamic, mobile, agile. He's a talented forward, but he just needs to play games for the Raiders, and he will be in a Kiwis squad come the end of season if he can stay healthy. Rabbitohs versus Bulldogs. Rabbitohs have no one, but this Bulldogs team has everyone. Dallin Watene-Zelezniak at fullback, Remus Smith on the wing, Corey Harawira-Naera on an edge. Then we go to the bench. Jeremy Marshall-King has been playing big minutes coming off the bench. So he's not starting, so it might look like Michael Lisha has the edge over Jeremy Marshall-King, but what's happening is Jeremy Marshall-King comes off the bench to play 40 straight minutes, 45 straight minutes, 50 straight minutes, whatever it is. Renouf Tu'umanga has also been a emerging light for the Bulldogs at the moment. He has overtaken Ofahiki Ogden on the bench, and he's just being robust. He's big, he's powerful, and someone to keep an eye on. Raymond Faitala-Mariner has also snuck onto the Bulldogs bench. On the Bulldogs extended bench, you also have Ofahiki Ogden, you also have Kieran Foran, and then also Morgan Harper. He is pretty much a clone of Remus Smith in the sense that he's tall, he's slender, he's athletic, he's skillful. He's primarily a centre but can play wing. He is from Ngaruawahia, I believe. He was a junior Kiwi centre last season. He was in the New South Wales residents team this season, and he is on the extended bench, and I am hoping that we see Morgan Harper make a debut for the Bulldogs this season. Couple games left. Roosters versus Warriors. Roosters have Joseph Manu, Jared Waerea-Hargreaves, Isaac Liu, and then you've on the bench you've got Tedavanu, Fa'amasili, Tupouniua. Sharks versus Dragons. Dragons are straight haters. They've got no one. Sharks have Sasai Feki on the wing, Sean Johnson in the halves, Britton Nakora, who has been a bit quiet recently, hasn't really kicked on after the Kiwis test that he made his debut in. He's kind of just been chilling, doing a solid job, but hasn't been the standout player he was at the start of the season. And then you've got Braden Hamlin-Uele coming off the bench, and that's it for this week, round 22. Plenty of names to keep an eye on, and it's good. Like, the Kiwi NRL numbers haven't been extremely high this season. You've got teams like the Rabbitohs and Dragons who have played most of their footy this season without any Kiwi NRL players in their teams. But as the season wears on, we're starting to see guys creep onto extended benches. Morgan Harper with the Bulldogs. Peter Holler made his debut for the Cowboys and is on the extended bench. We've seen Greg Liliasio for the Parramatta Eels on the extended bench. So there's this young wave of talent in the NRL, young wave of Kiwi NRL talent, and obviously these guys are Pākehā Māori Polynesian as well, so they're available and eligible for those Polynesian teams, but I put them in the Kiwi NRL umbrella because they have played their junior footy in Aotearoa, or they have strong connections to Aotearoa. Same boat, you've got Jura Momosia for the Knights. All these guys have been lurking on the fringes of the NRL for this season, and especially recent weeks, and hopefully with how games play out, results play out, what teams are wanting at this stage of the season. We see a couple of these dudes make their debuts. That would be amazing just to boost the numbers and show people. Because one thing for me to talk about it, I talk about it a lot. There is a strong Kiwi NRL presence at every single NRL club. Even if they don't show it in their NRL teams, their reserve grade teams are full of Kiwi NRL talent. Their Jersey Flegg teams are full of Kiwi NRL talent. I can talk about it. I can tell you about it. I can talk about this player, that player, what they're doing. But you got to see it. And we're starting to see it, which is a beautiful thing. So keep a close eye on what the Niche Case is telling you, because we're out here telling you who from Aotearoa, which Kiwi NRL players are sneaking into NRL footy, who's doing well, who's doing what. Thank you for listening. Extremely grateful for your airtime, and we'll be back early next week for some more rugby league discussions. Stay beautiful, kia kaha, and keep it positive. Peace.